Also, we would need to establish the specific parameters of the program. In other words, if we were to do a pilot, where would we do it? How big do we want it to be? It doesn't necessarily have to be 50 units. 50 units is just the proposal on the table. And then also we would then move to draft the relevant RFPs. And yes, next slide, thank you. So what would a pilot like this look like for 50 units? I've taken a stab at it here. This shows a budget of just under $6 million. The bulk of it being the 50 units at $100,000 per unit. That's the bulk of the cost. It's about $5 million for that. We've added some contingency, 5%. We've put an administrative fee in of 10%. And then the ongoing annual management fees and administrative and maintenance fees, we've put those in based upon rental costs. We think based upon the latest HUD tables for units such as this, the rent that would be garnered is in the range of about $957 to be exact per month for units such as this. Next slide, please. So that's it.
Before we go to questions, I just want to thank Jennifer, who's here, and Evan, who's here. Some of the report updates in the back to show our economic mobility strategy. This is our results for 2023 and our projects. You can see those. I have a specific report that you'll be receiving. And this is our opportunity as well to talk about all the efforts that we've done in Proctor Creek, and want to thank Evan for his work there. And I will open it up to any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. First up, we have Councilmember Matt Westmoreland.
Thank you for your presentation. I think the only question I have right now is, do you have a recommendation on a potential funding stream? And I guess the implicit question there is, would you consider the Housing Opportunity Bond as one such potential bucket?
That's a great question. You want to take
I'll
that?
take it.
You want to take that?
Good news is that the Housing Opportunity Bond, if we look at our project trajectory and what we expect, all of the funds have been pretty much assigned. So we don't have much room left in our Housing Opportunity Bond, which is good because we're using it. So no.
Both of them? 21 and 23?
Mm-hmm. We have line of sight in all project using those monies. In fact, hopefully we'll come back to you soon.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question for you, Dr. Clementage. Unrelated to the presentation, but just to put back on your radar, I know we had some great conversations last couple of weeks about possibility for a legacy business program for the city of Atlanta. I know we're still standing by for some information from your team, so I just want to put that back on your radar if you can get that over to us. And
of course.
Start, hopefully have a presentation similar to this with some of the findings that y'all had. I think y'all are doing some great work and want the world to see all the amazing things y'all are working on.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just add, great pilot program. Looks like something that, we really should look at exploring. In terms of next steps, I see those outlined in the presentation, but do you have a timeline for next steps?
Well, we could move down the next steps.
Or at least for recommendations. I know some of these aren't all monetary, like working with the city department, identifying specific parameters, locations that we can test this out. So some of those pieces of the next steps.
Yeah, my response to that is we could move right away, initiating the next steps. The caveat would just be, once we get down the road a bit, we just need to unlock the financial piece of it.
Sure.
But technically there's nothing stopping us from starting to move down that road.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, thank you. All right, up next, we have Parks and Recreation Millage Implementation Plan update. We'll bring up Commissioner Cutler.
Good afternoon, Chair Winston. How y'all doing?
Good afternoon.
Good. There's the clicker. Well, thank you everybody for your time today. As you stated earlier, my name is Justin Cutler, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation, and today we're here to discuss and share with you the 2024 through 2026 fiscal year millage implementation plan. First, I want to just say thank you to the Department of Parks and Recreation staff. There's many people who gave many long hours to put this plan together. Also evaluating all of our parks evaluating all of our parks through our quality assessment tool, as well as ensuring that we met the expectations of the resolution and ordinance that were passed as part of last year's budget. So thank you to the men and women of the Department of Parks and Recreation who made today possible. First, just a reminder about our mission and vision, which is to provide equitable access to outstanding recreation and natural and cultural experiences that enhance the happiness, health, and well-being of all Atlantans. And we envision this occurring to make recreation and parks the heart and soul of Atlanta through a diverse yet seamless and interconnected system of parks, recreation, and natural areas. So as we think about how we achieve this, we use our framework from Activate ATL to invest, connect, and grow our parks and recreation system. And invest look like investing in trails, investing in maintenance, investing in people. Connecting is bringing people together through better wayfinding, developing environmental education programs, communicating how people can connect, and then growing our system through acquisition, maintenance, and also healthy food. So all of that together embodies our Activate ATL program. Also through the Activate program, we heard numerous people comment through community surveys that 85% of people supported additional funding for parks and recreation services. 55% of Atlantans supported additional funding for parks and recreation in our statistically valid survey. 24% of people said that maintenance was one of the reasons they did not come to our parks. And so council, as part of last year's budget process, the mayor provided a 6.5% increase to the parks and recreation budget, and council passed the additional millage, which resulted in roughly 16 to 17 million more dollars for park and recreation services. So as part of that process, after the resolution and ordinance were passed in June of 2023, we began our assessment. We also engaged the community in 3 community meetings. We talked with council members, talked with the Mayor's Green Space Advisory Council. In December, we met with the Mayor's Office, the Chief Operating Officer, the Mayor's Office of Equity and Inclusion, the Legislative Liaison, and many others to get their feedback, and the Chief Financial Officer to get their feedback on the proposed plan and refine it further, focusing on maintenance, repairs, training, hiring, communication, safety. And across all of those community meetings, those were the themes that we heard, that people wanted better communication from the department on different work orders that were submitted. They wanted to see enhanced litter pickup and maintenance in our parks. And they also wanted to see additional training and better equipment for our park maintenance staff. They felt that those things were important and would lead to a better maintained system, and we agreed and put that together in the plan. And what I'm sharing with you today is a brief summary of the total plan that's about 46 pages and will be on our Activate ATL website. Has numerous links and additional information and background information and very detailed as far as investments in council districts. But today, given the short period of time, we just wanted to provide you with a brief overview so the public knew where to go to access that information. And I know each of you have received, and your offices have received the full report. But as part of the ordinance, there's 4 things that we needed to address. There will be an audit every 5 years of this program to identify how the program is doing against the original ordinance. We are required to do annual assessments, so every year we do our quality park assessment tool. We look at the quality of the playground, the benches, the turf, the drinking fountains, etc. Also, we were asked to share revised schedules, so what would this mean for my litter in my park? What would it mean for mowing in my park, and how would that change or how would that be different? And then quarterly, when we give our Community Development and Human Services Committee reports, we'll be providing itemized spending, breaking down how we're spending these resources so that there's transparency and accountability for the investment that the public is making in our parks and recreation services. So we took a kind of a 3-year approach using a term that I call sleep, creep, and leap, which is really the length of time that it takes a plant to really develop a solid root system. So the first year, the plant tends to sleep. The second year, the plant, if you watch plants, tends to creep. And then the third year, you see tremendous growth or fruiting or leafing, right? And it leaps. And so that's why we think of the rollout of this program in kind of 3 years and in these 4 buckets. 50% towards capital improvements and capital repair, 40% towards maintenance and repair, 5% towards safety and security camera maintenance, as well as 5% towards recreation, administration, and strategy and innovation. Furthermore, these categories are broken down into this slide here, which is $15 million over 3 years towards repairs. So this is system-wide repairs, looking at HVAC, plumbing, electrical, fences, some painting. Also, staffing, increasing both staff, permanent, full-time staff, seasonal staff, as well as contracted staff, and add additional forestry staff to our program. Vehicles and large equipment purchases. Many of our dump trucks are over 20 years old. Some of our mowers are 6 and 7 years old. So oftentimes, one of the main reasons we can't complete our mowing cycle is because we don't have mowers. They're either with Department of Public Works being fixed, they're just have completely failed, and we're waiting on a new one. And so we're actually going to be replacing over 19 mowers. We're replacing our golf course mowers. This last year, we had challenges maintaining our golf courses at Candler Park, where the fairway was pretty long, and we had to use a traditional mower to mow the fairway versus a golf mower. And so continuing to add equipment to help reduce the pain and suffering, both of the resident on waiting for the grass to get cut, as well as our staff who want to do the job of mowing the lawn but don't have the equipment to do it. So really working hard on that investment. Also contract services, both related to security. We've now hired our second recaptured officer. We'll be hiring our first director of Parks and Recreation Public Safety at the end of this first quarter. And then we'll be building out a ranger program modeled after Midtown Blue and ADID that do a great job of both having contracted security, staff monitoring, and staff security park rangers, as well as recaptured officers. So we'll have kind of a three-prong approach when it comes to safety and security in our parks. In addition to that, we're adding another $400,000 to maintain our camera system. We received $4 million as part of the Moving Atlanta Forward bond program, but now we'll have additional money to maintain the cameras, because one of our biggest challenges is when a camera breaks, being able to go out and quickly fix it to make sure that the camera's meeting the safety and security needs of that park. Also, we're going to be improving and beautifying our parks with additional trash cans, painting buildings, painting restrooms, and also making sure we have additional ornamental plantings to enhance the vibe and the feel of our parks. We're also adding comms and data staff, making sure that we have adequate Wi-Fi and training for our Parks and Recreation staff. One of the big things that we heard from many of our partners is they're willing to offer training, and so we're working with Trees Atlanta on a plant identification, tree pruning program, as well as with other entities to help us constantly evolve and improve our park maintenance program. We're also dedicated about 50% or $48 million to fund our capital program. And this is in addition to the $146 million that the voters approved through the Moving Atlanta Forward bond measure. So in total, over the next three to 5 years, we'll be investing over $200 million in parks and recreation capital projects because of the Moving Atlanta Forward money and these resources that we have here. Here's again a further breakdown of the information I just shared, a little more details focused on staffing, contracted maintenance. We'll be making an investment in the Beltline. As you've likely heard, as the Beltline comes and give their updates, they don't have a source for maintenance funding, so currently the general fund provides Beltline maintenance to the Department of Parks and Recreation, and we'll be adding additional maintenance money to the tune of $750,000 a year towards Beltline maintenance. This will address comprehensive litter pickup, add additional days of litter pickup, graffiti abatement, as well as minor repairs and fixes to the trail. This being our beachfront property in Atlanta, we want to make sure it looks its best and make sure that people have access to a high-quality trail free of graffiti and free of this repair. So we're really excited to be able to make that investment. In addition to that, Beltline's going to turn around and help us out with capital dollars, because they have capital dollars and they're required as part of the Beltline TAD to make investments in Beltline parks. And so they'll be committing to helping us improve our parks in a capital manner, being able to work together with our friends at the Beltline. We'll also be maintaining our pools. As you may or may not know, you committed $11 million to the Moving Atlanta Forward bond program to renovating our pools. Now we'll have additional money to maintain our pools to make sure that they stay in tip-top shape and ready for the public to swim. This last year, we were able to open all 12 outdoor pools, which is the first time in a while, and this year we're trending in that same direction to make sure that we have adequate lifeguard staffs to do the same. So really excited about those resources. Also, equipment repair and purchase. This is minor equipment like backpack blowers. We're also purchasing 2 backpack vacuum cleaners, so staff will have the ability to vacuum up glass. Sometimes you go to our parks, you go to our playgrounds, and you see glass in the playground, and it's really tedious for staff to have to pick up the glass, and so we've purchased backpack vacuum cleaners so staff can now vacuum up the glass so that little kids aren't cutting their feet in our playgrounds. Also, camera maintenance, playground repairs, nurseries, painting, as I mentioned earlier. So here's just some highlights. Also some forestry maintenance, another $1 million annually towards forestry, mainly towards contracted services to make sure that we're able to pick up debris. Once our forestry staff fall those trees and fall the limbs, then somebody else comes behind and picks up that stuff. We're adding new team members in year 2 and 3, recognizing that part of the Sleep, Creep, Leap program is that first year you're hiring and you're ramping up the hiring process and the advertisement of those positions. And so at our first year and a half, we'll tend to have more contracted staff, and then by the second half of the second year and the third year, we'll be hiring more staff, in addition to still remaining some contracted staff. Also, sorry, apologies for the audience in this room. The text is a little small, but here we have, we'll also have 4 regional parks teams that are able to help support our regional parks. But the real benefit there is that oftentimes teams are pulled off of our smaller parks and they're called to our larger parks because of different events and activities. And by having a dedicated team, we'll be able to have more maintenance at our smaller parks. So our teams won't be called out as often to maintain the larger parks. They'll be able to maintain the smaller parks. We'll have a dedicated graffiti team. So we're committing to removing graffiti in our parks within 24 to 48 hours once we're notified of that graffiti in our parks. And this next week, we'll actually be closing down Old Fourth Ward for some repairs to the skate park as well as graffiti abatement, and then working with the graffiti team to make sure that we don't have graffiti returned at that site. We'll also have a dedicated trail team dedicated to cleaning Proctor Creek, Whetstone Creek, Lionel Hampton Trail, many trails throughout our system that currently it's part of just the general park maintenance duties, but now we'll have a dedicated trail maintenance team with specialized equipment to better maintain our trail corridors. We'll also have enhanced litter pickup. Many of our parks, instead of just having the litter picked up once a day, will now be twice a day, some twice a day, twice 5 days a week. Now many will be twice 7 days a week. So we're really trying to make a difference in our litter pickup. Also, we'll have a skilled service team that's able to work Monday through Friday in the evenings from 3 to 11 o'clock at night. So we'll be able to leverage equipment in a sense in a 2-for-1 manner. So one crew will come and use the truck, drive it around, and then they'll go home, and another crew will come and use that same truck, and they'll be able to maintain our through painting, plumbing, and electrical services through our skilled service team at our buildings and our parks. So we'll have more coverage, more time, and more impact. Here's again another list of investments, just kind of breaking it down: contracted maintenance, plumbing, trash can purchasing, and the like. Here's a summary of our equipment that we'll be purchasing: riding lawnmowers, dump trucks, pressure washer units to make sure we're able to remove graffiti, transit vans to make sure that we're able to transport special event material. Oftentimes now staff are using their own private vehicle to transport stuff. We've had concerns about people breaking into those vehicles when we have to leave items in the truck overnight and park in a secured location. Staff aren't able to take their cars home and then come back. It can be pretty tedious, so they'll be able to leave their stuff, their event stuff, in the truck in a parked lot so it's safe and secure. Gators, tandem dump trucks, and large mowers. Lastly, recreation programs. We'll be making investments in recreation programs. So already this year, we've been able to expand the number of senior programs that we've been able to offer from 4 sites to 15 sites. We're also offering more youth programs. So every site that has a Camp Best Friends program has at least one contractor, if not 2 or 3 in some cases, offering STEAM and STEM education, literacy, drone, film, music, arts, and dance. So a lot of better investment in recreation services as well. Also, marketing, technology, and training. One of the points of feedback we got from Activate ATL is that people wanted to see more investment in our communication and in social media, so they knew what was going on. And so we've made a deeper investment with the additional funds to help get the word out about what's going on. Also upgrading Wi-Fi in many of our recreation centers, making sure our computers are up to date. Some computers that the staff are using still have CD-ROM drives. Those who are maybe younger than 10 years old at home probably don't know what a CD-ROM drive is, but it was a silver disc that you'd stick in and it would spin and sound kind of funny sometimes. But we still do have computers, and we'll be replacing those for our staff as well. As also improving training and certifications, both the Certified Parks and Recreation Professional, Certified Parks and Recreation Executive, as well as management training, and making sure we have a GIS specialist. Some additional capital investments in addition to the Batch 1 funding. All 31 projects are underway at the Department of Parks and Recreation for our Moving Atlanta Forward projects. We'll be initiating the Sons of Atlanta Vietnam War Memorial in Piedmont Park. We're investing in the Chattahoochee Riverlands Trail. The mayor in the State of the City address in 2022 said that we're taking the city to the river, and this is a promise fulfilled that we'll be delivering before the World Cup, in which people will be able to ride a bike from Mercedes-Benz Stadium all the way to the Chattahoochee River on a trail. And then if they wanted to, they could even get in a kayak at Standing Peachtree Park, thanks to Trust for Public Land and the Department of Watershed and the Department of Parks and Rec, and paddle down the river if they wanted to. So, and also we're able to implement many of the task force recommendations related to the Public Safety Training Center, ensuring public access as part of our work. Here's our investment, our capital improvement plan. And as you can see, this is a 3-year plan. As we continue to refine this plan, we'll be developing it into a 5-year plan that will take into account both our millage funding, our community improvement enterprise funds or CIE funds, community impact fees or CIE funds, also tree trust funds looking at acquisitions and capital investments. Many of these are citywide. They include ADA improvements. They include golf cart purchases, electrification of a golf cart, trails, playground replacements, 80 Walker playground replacement, and many other things, Cascade Nature Springs bathroom, and also Lindsay Street playground renovation. We had some contaminated soil at Lindsay Street, and so we're waiting for the EPA to remediate that site, and then we'll be rebuilding that playground as well. So lots happening at the Department of Parks and Recreation. Just again, thank you for council's support. I'm happy to take any questions, and I know each of you have gotten the full detailed report, and the report will be posted on our website. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner Cutler, and warning, incoming lobbying by each district rep to push those dates a little bit earlier, but we'll start with our at-large member, Councilmember Westmoreland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. You and your team have done a wonderful job. This is exactly where I hoped we would be when Councilman Hill started this conversation about doubling the fund last spring. Also appreciated your preview, and I'm asked the same question in public that I asked during that meeting. Back in October of 2021, Council members Boone and Bond and I were 3 of the 12 folks who initiated a $2 million donation to Park Pride for green space investments in community development impact areas. So it's where 50% or more of the residents in an area make 80% or less of AMI. The $2 million was matched by philanthropy. A lot of us have seen the great work that has come from that. It's my understanding that those collective $4 million have now been expended. And I'm curious how, if at all, you think future investments like that either fit into this bucket of money or any other bucket of money that comes to mind.
Yeah, Councilmember Westmoreland, thank you for your comment. And I think I'll take that as a point of feedback. And I think what we're doing is we met with each of the council members. There's many council members as returned my phone call to talk about the plan. And as part of that, we're taking these points of feedback. We'll be meeting with the mayor. The great thing is that this is being a plan. It is firm, but also flexible. And so I'll take that point of feedback. We'll review that with the mayor and see what we can do either this next fiscal year and future fiscal years to identify a fund to support that grant program. Because as you know, and I know, we've been able to double the investment, right? If we chip in $1 million, then it doubles by going out and engaging philanthropy. So that's something that we're committed to doing, is figuring out ways that we can get 2-for-1s with these resources. Either through job training programs, we're able to hire, like we're working with the CEO program to hire people who are formerly incarcerated to come and work in Parks and Recreation to remove litter as a job training program. So always looking for ways to get those 2-for-1s.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Cutler. Just a question that popped up that I forgot to ask during our one-on-one. With this being generating a future or potentially generating a 5-year plan. I know you talked about years 1 through 3 already. I'm curious what's informing the capital projects y'all are identifying for years 4, years 5, and beyond. Is it CIE project submissions? Is it partnership with Park Pride, so you have a sense of what they're working on that we can provide matching local funds for? Is it active friends of groups that are coming up with all sorts of ideas for their parks? So just curious what's informing that and where maybe City Council can provide some input with some ideas that we might have for our parks as well.
Yeah, most definitely. Always happy to take input. So anytime you have feedback on what you'd like to see for the future, please send it my way. I know you've submitted ideas related to Rosa Birney Park, some some shade structures as well as Windsor Park and redoing the tennis and basketball court there. So those are on our list. So yeah, happy to take feedback at any point you have it. But mainly what we use is the equity data tool and the quality park assessment tool, looking at points of failure related to our playground system. So we know that traditionally playgrounds have a shelf life of about 20 years in some cases, depending on the use. But sometimes we like to replace them sooner based on community demand or use or overuse in some cases. So we look at replacement cycles first and foremost. We look at our equity data tool and the quality park assessment tool, and then third, community input and feedback.
Oh, thank you. And just on that last point, and I shared this with Michael Halicki and the Park Pride folks, one of the things that I always caution just our decision makers on in terms of identifying projects is that as a city, we have some very well-organized friends of groups that are going to advocate for the parks as if it was their own children. And then we have a number of our city parks that don't have active friends of groups that often get lost in terms of funding opportunities and capital improvements because there's not a group that's adopted a park and is taking ownership of improvements there. So I know I'm thankful to hear that the equity tool is a big part of how y'all are coming up with these ideas, but you definitely don't want to lose sight of the fact that some of our parks just don't have that infrastructure in place to advocate in a way that maybe other parks might. And so definitely happy to chat with you with seeing where y'all can come up with some ideas for some of our non-friends of group parks that could use some love. But I appreciate all y'all are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for a very thorough presentation. And it's good news on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Always excited to see the progress on that. But I wanted to ask you, though, your spending plan basically is like just you're going to fund these projects as the funding comes in. Have you all looked at maybe floating a bond for a certain amount of money or a certain amount of projects and financing it over time? Have
Yeah.
you all had those discussions or not?
We've contemplated that as an option, given that sometimes it's easier to pay now versus paying later or pay over a period of time based on the time value of money. We have looked at that as an option, and that's still on the table. It may be year 4, year 5. But if you have specific projects in mind that you'd like to see completed that may be a higher dollar value, I think, and this is for all committee members as well as council members, please submit those ideas because that is always on the table as being an option to move things quicker.
And just one other follow-up. I know one of the hurtful things that happens in our parks is when people deface the restrooms and put them in a condition where the public can't use them. Have you all considered changing the model of the restrooms in our public park, like the secured one we have out here on Central?
Yeah, I think we're all constantly looking at the best design, and there is one model that I saw that has like translucent glass in which you can literally see into the bathroom, and then you turn the lock and and the glass turns translucent, so you can't see in. So there's many different options out there, but we're constantly trying to find the best option that reduces total cost, is vandal resistant, nothing's vandal proof, and looking at options like this out here on Central is one option. But there's many options out there, and are constantly evaluating what's going to be the lowest maintenance as well as the lowest, the best way to reduce vandalism. Yes.
And just to close out, the security in the parks, I know that there has been the security patrol, I don't want to say security patrol, we have off-duty APD officers out there. I know you had mentioned the creation of park rangers. Will they also be law enforcement officers? Because my experience has been that people respond differently to sworn officer versus a security personnel.
Yeah, it'll be a combination. I think we don't always want to use a hammer if a velvet hammer will work better, right? And so I think we'll look at the cost of both sworn, non-sworn, as well as park patrol or park ranger. I think sometimes we also find it can de-escalate situations when we don't send a uniformed officer out to address a specific issue. I know ADID and Midtown Blue have found success with their patrols to reduce crime. we're never going to eliminate crime, and we'll always need a police response. And the chief and I are in constant communication about areas of greatest threat. Where we identify areas of greatest threat, then we may initiate either a sworn officer or an off-duty officer. But in general, I think we envision more of a lighter, security-oriented touch that may not be lights and sirens and fully sworn police officers as a means of bringing people into compliance related to, dogs off leash, picnic shelter reservations, minor parking violations in parks that can use a lighter touch. But then in instances where we need maybe more of a heavier touch because there's a threat of a mass gathering or there's mass parking and a large event that needs to be shut down, then it does make sense. And we're always going to call on our brothers and sisters at APD to come and help address those situations. But the first contact may simply be a patrol person identifying that there's a need, calling APD, calling one of our sworn rangers to come and intervene, and then call APD for backup to completely handle the situation. So we envision kind of a scaled approach, if you will, and then also, looking at how we close down our parks or patrol our parks at night, both using our camera system that many of you requested cameras in our parks. So identifying a way that we can have a mini VIC where we are monitoring cameras and then deploying police or park ranger resources to address those issues in a proactive way using our camera system. So there's many different ways to approach crime and safety in parks, and we just want to make sure we're using all the tools at our disposal. Because sworn officers can be fairly costly, as we found over the last years contracting for sworn officers, and we just want to make sure we're being as cost efficient as possible, as well as maintaining a high level of safety.
Well, I'm glad you touched on the cameras, because I was going to ask you, I know we've got cameras at a particular number of parks. How are we in expanding those cameras? And you mentioned your own version of VIC. How far along are you on that?
Yeah, so we're constantly working up using our data to identify where we need cameras. So we're still working through our top 20 parks, which is the $4 million that we got from the Move Atlanta Forward Bond Program. So many of our parks will see cameras in them for this next kind of high season. The mini VIC program, we're waiting to hire the Director of Parks and Recreation Public Safety, but currently we can monitor the cameras. We just don't have the staff person to monitor the cameras. So once this individual is hired, we'll be working to hire additional staff to monitor the cameras and provide that connection with kind of the mini VIC idea. And that's one of the questions we're asking as part of our interview process is, do you have experience with Fusus? What's your experience in setting up these types of systems, and how would you use technology in order to police and monitor our parks?
I know that some have raised issues about the cost of having the off-duty police officer in the parks, but I can tell you that I run into citizens all the time that absolutely love it. And yeah. I know that there might be a tendency or a leaning to want a cheaper option, but I hope you stay as close to sworn officers, particularly overnight.
Yeah.
During the day, when you were describing what a park ranger might do, I was thinking that would be an excellent job to that a younger person who might be transitioning from being a lifeguard or working for Camp Best Friends, transferring them as they get older into that type of role, who lives in the community, that cares about the park. That would be a great job. But it makes a difference when the real deal shows up.
Yep.
I will hope don't let the cost dissuade you about keeping them in, because we'll find the money to keep the park safe.
Thank you.
People are raving about it. But I'll withdraw.
Thank you, Councilmember Bond. And I'll just second Councilmember Bond's point. I know that parks in my district, the ones that have uniformed officers, we've gotten great feedback from the community about feeling, very safe about overnight patrols. Even just seeing the cars in the park with the blue lights, I think is reassuring for a lot of folks. So, I'll just second that point as well. I did want to ask one point of clarification on the capital projects. You have them listed in fiscal years. Are some of these projects happening in the prior calendar year. I know that's kind of confusing, but City of Atlanta's fiscal year ends in June. So for instance, you have FY '25. That project could actually potentially happen in the year '24. So is that how it's listed out, or are they actually calendar years?
Fiscal year, yeah.
Okay.
And even then, some of the projects may be budgeted in one fiscal year, so we save the funds and then they get spent in another fiscal year based on staffing capacity. Right now with Moving Atlanta Forward, that is our #1 priority. And then we are working through these projects. Some of these are higher priority than others, but I think what we're communicating to the public is that we're committed to funding these projects. And then we'll get to them kind of in this order. And in some cases, what you'll see in future years is you may see like $250,000 in one fiscal year, which will allow us to design a project, and then you'll see $1 million in the next fiscal year, which will allow us to construct the project. So you may see some projects that get spread out over 2 years as a means of kind of saving and then executing and design.
Okay, and I think if you could give more clarification around that to council members, I think it'll help us articulate, kind of the start and completion of some of those projects, even if it, goes through a design phase or, look at pre-procurement and what that looks like in terms of, I think what's easier for us is going to be shovels in the ground at completion.
Yep.
It's going to be the easiest thing for us to be able to convey to our constituents. So I appreciate that. And then we have Councilmember Boone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. Just wanting to remind you all about the Collier Park Recreation Center replacement or upgrade to that rec center. It is very dated, and I know we spoke on our tour regarding that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from my colleagues? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Commissioner Cutler. I know that was kind of a last-minute add to the agenda, so we appreciate you accommodating.
Well, no, appreciate your accommodation, and thank you to the committee and council for your help. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we can go to our regular agenda. So we'll go into ordinance for second reading. Jared?
Would the committee like to take items number 1 and 2 as a block?
Objectives? Yep.
Okay. Item number 1, 24-010-12, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta and the Department of Parks and Recreation to retroactively reinstate to September 24, 2023, the Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Atlanta and the Board of Regents of the University System of Georgia by and on behalf of the Georgia State University for the provision of maintenance and other services at Hurt Park, to extend the term of the MOU for an additional period of 5 years commencing on September 24, 2023 through September 23, 2028, to waive all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, to ratify all actions taken by or on behalf of the city since the date of expiration of the MOU and for other purposes. Item number 2 is 24-010-13, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to reinstate retroactively to December 19, 2022, a memorandum of understanding between the City of Atlanta and Buckhead Baseball, Inc. with respect to the operation and maintenance of the baseball fields at Bagley Park, formerly known as Frankie Allen Park, for recreational baseball programs, to exercise a 5-year renewal option under the MOU commencing December 20th, 2022 through December 19th, 2027, to waive all ordinances and resolutions in conflict herewith, to permit the reinstatement of the MOU, to ratify all actions taken by or on behalf of the city since the date of the expiration of the MOU and for other purposes.
A motion to approve by Councilman Westmoreland, a second by Dozier. If you can please open the vote.
The vote is open. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is there one more? Okay. The vote is closed. It'll be 6 yeas and 0 nays.
Next, we'll move on to resolutions. Item number 3.
Item number 3, 24R3110, and a resolution by Councilmember Byron D. Amos authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Atlanta and the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, for the purpose of the City of Atlanta to perform environmental reviews for the Housing Authority projects and activities that receive federal financial assistance as required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and for other purposes.
Director Reed.
Yes, my name is Gerald Reed, Director of Program Operations, Department of Grants and Community Development. As a responsible entity for HUD and environmental reviews, the IGA agreement with AH provides a mechanism for DGCD to review and certify the environmental reviews for AH.
Approved by Councilmember Westmoreland, second by Dozier. Mr. Evans, can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. And the vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. So, item number 4, 24R3111, a resolution by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a memorandum of understanding between the City of Atlanta and Hosea Feed the Hungry and Homeless, Inc. for the performance of an environmental review for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, Economic Development Initiative, Community Project Funding Grant for the for the proposed Forest Hill Drive warehouse project located at 2545 Forest Hills Drive Southwest, Atlanta, Georgia 30315, and for reimbursement of all costs associated with the environmental review and for other purposes.
Yes, so as the responsible entity for HUD environmental reviews, the MOU with Hosea provides a mechanism for DGCD to review and certify the environmental reviews completed on behalf by our consultant.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Boone and a second by Councilmember Westmoreland. Mr. Evans, can you please open the vote?
And the vote is open. Would all members please vote? And the vote is closed. 6 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you.
Item number 5 is 24R3113, a resolution by council members Marcy Collier Overstreet and Keisha Shawn Waits urging the mayor or his designee to authorize a feasibility study for the rehabilitation of the Quicksilver track and for other purposes.
Motion to approve? Second by Councilmember Westmoreland. Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. That concludes the legislative items.
Thank you. That concludes all the legislative items for today. Any?
It came through CDHS initially back in August and then was sent back to ZRB after a substitute was put forth by full council, and then it went back through zoning committee yesterday. I would presume it'd come back through CDHS today, but if not, I'm not gonna lose sleep over it, but I just would assume it was. I mean, it's a zoning paper, just the original legislation was dual referred, so I would assume once it got referred back to ZRB, continue to remain dual referred, but I don't. Ooh.
Excuse me, what is the number of the legislation at issue? I'm sorry.
One moment. 23-0-1003.
Twenty-three oh 1003.
Correct.
It doesn't appear on this agenda as a dual referred item.
Okay. We passed that as zoning yesterday, so yay. We'll see y'all next week.
Yeah, like, it's not in the workflow. I don't think it needed to be here.
Okay. I yield.
Thank you. Well, it looks like we have no other further business today. Any parting words from my colleagues?
Just one.
All right.
Thank you. I just wanted to wish my partner, Chris Brown, a happy anniversary in 11 years. So, happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. All right. Seeing we have no other business, we do stand adjourned. Thank you.